Nowadays, everything is at the push of a button. In a few short minutes, you can book a flight halfway across the world. You're able to contact someone who is thousands of miles away within seconds. But despite all of this technology and modern equipment, we must learn to wait in the midst of our troubles and suffering. All this and more. Back to my channel. I am so excited to be sharing with you guys the fourth message on the fruits of the Spirit entitled Patience. You know, sometimes in this world we get everything at the click of a button, so it's very important to take time, to wait, and then to receive the blessing that God has for us. Have you ever been stuck between a rock and a hard place? It's a very popular question that people like to ask, and it's kind of metaphorical, but in another way, you know what I'm talking about. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know firsthand that sometimes it takes a while until you find peace in that space. Only then can you find the good and the bad, the peace in the trouble. You know, peace takes time. And it's very important that we learn that. You know, I want to share with you a story where patience was not only a virtue, it was a requirement. This story is of a man named Daniel. And no, it was not me. It's a story of an administrator over Israel. And if you read the earlier chapters, you'll find out why he was made an administrator in the first place. But Daniel was an administrator, and he was blessed by God. And the king was even looking forward to making him rule over the entire empire. The king liked him that much. His name was King Darius. King Darius liked Daniel so much, man, he wanted to make him the ruler over the entire empire. And now some of the administrators, they didn't like this. They got a little bit jealous, and they didn't exactly want him to be in that spot. But Daniel was gonna get it anyway, because he was blessed by God. And so they were jealous, and they tried to take him down. They tried finding any fault in him, but they couldn't, because he was that close to God. I know a lot of my fellow believers, we wish to have that type of relationship with God, that we embody him, that we are almost as perfect as he is. I know I'm not. I make a lot of mistakes. And I'll admit it. I know the people who are watching my videos. And some of them, they know the mistakes I've made. And it carries with me. But, you know, we all make mistakes. And we hope to be as perfect and as faultless as Daniel is. That if somebody wants to come after us, they try to find any slight deviation from the path or any fault in our lives, previous or current. They try to find any fault in us, but they can't. That's the type of relationship I wish to have with God. And Daniel was in this relationship. He was so close to God, and that's what they used. That's what his fellow administrators used against him. So they went up to the king, and they were like, "Hey, king, why don't you make a law that anybody who does not bow down to you, but instead worships or serves something else or someone else, that they should be thrown into the lion's den?" And King Darius, hearing this, he goes, "Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. That's a good law." But little did he know what they were planning. And so Daniel heard this, right? And he was completely unfazed. Dude went home. He started praying. He opened his window just as he did every single other time. And like clockwork, those administrators showed up. They saw him, and they ran to the king. They ran to the king, and they said, "King, look what Daniel is doing. Daniel is praying to his God. But isn't there a law that says he can't pray to anybody except for you?" So the king goes, and he tried to find a way out, a way that Daniel wouldn't be thrown into the lion's den, because the king loved Daniel. The king liked Daniel a lot, and he wanted him to rule over the entire empire. He didn't want him to be thrown into the lion's den. So he tried finding something, but he could not save Daniel. And so I want to read to you Daniel 6, starting from 16. So at last, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." Kind of mocking him. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of nobles, so that nobody could rescue Daniel. The stone was immovable. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. He was so scared and also so guilty that he put his best administrator in the den of lions. I mean, after all, King Darius, he didn't have faith, but Daniel did. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" Out of the darkness, out of the pit that they put him in, Daniel answered, "Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty." Daniel served the king, but he also served God. And he had patience that entire night that God would save him. Daniel had faith that God would take him through the bad, through the persecution, to enjoy the peace, freedom, and joy that God had for him. I encourage you today, persevere the persecution to bask in the benefits. After all of this, the danger, the terrible treatment, the Lord blessed Daniel because of his faith, punished those against him, and the king glorified God's name above all the nation. Let's start from verse 23 of the same chapter. The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who had maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. The lions leaped on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor of the den. Then King Darius sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world: "Peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Daniel waited and had patience. He knew that God would bless him, and he did. Daniel was blessed because he just waited throughout the night. He was able to enjoy the good that God had for him. Daniel waited after an entire night, and he was blessed. Even though he was faced with spirits that should have made him afraid, he had patience, and he waited for the blessing. So I want to encourage you to do that today, to wait for the blessing. Another individual who was who was very capable of waiting for long periods of time, was King David. As the youngest child of his family, David was anointed king by the prophet Samuel at around 10 to 15 years old, scholars say. However, David was required to wait until King Saul's reign was concluded. During all of this, despite his sin, David remained faithful to God, following his commands. He played for the king he would one day succeed. He played his instruments for the king he would succeed. He fought a soldier who was almost 10 feet tall and won. The story of David and Goliath, that's King David. And he even turned towards the path of pacifism when running from King Saul. It was only after the second time that David was like, hey, King Saul, I could have killed you, but I didn't. It was only after that second time that King Saul was like, all right, I give up. It was only then that David was crowned king of Israel. After roughly 20 years of waiting. This isn't just a night-long trip in a lion's den. This is 20 years of your life. David was crowned king at 30 years old. 30 years old. He was crowned king. He was anointed at 10 to 15, around there. He was anointed at 30. He was made king at 30. He waited 15 to 20 years for his blessing. Now, I don't know what God's plan is for your life. I'm not God. I'm not that smart. I'm not that intelligent. I'm not that wise. But God has a plan for you. And if he wants you to wait 10 minutes, wait 10 minutes. If he wants you to wait 10 years, wait 10 years. But the blessing that God has for you requires patience. Because if we just want it now, it's not going to happen. We have to wait. We have to follow him. Because patience is a virtue. After David was crowned king, he received many more blessings. And at first he adored them because he had waited so incredibly long to get them. But after a while, he began to take his gifts for granted because they were almost instantly given to him. Once David was crowned king, he held an army of 12 divisions, each holding 24,000 men. Doing the math, that's 288,000 men. He won battle after battle and was given a vast amount of victories, treasures, and riches, all because David waited for the gift. But like I said, after a while, he began to take it for granted. He had numerous wives, of which only 8 were named in Scripture. And of those 8, one was more sinful than the rest. A woman by the name of Bathsheba. She was married to a man named Uriah, a close friend of David's, but also a loyal soldier to the Israelite army. When David ordered that Bathsheba come into his rest, they conceived a child together. David didn't know what to do. He's the king, but he slept with a married woman, and she conceived. He didn't know what to do. He drew her husband from the front lines. Uriah came back from the front lines, and David was like, hey, Uriah, your wife wants you. And Uriah said, no, I'm a loyal man to my army. I'm going to sleep outside the city gate, and I'm going to return tomorrow. And that is exactly what he did. And when he returned to battle the next day, David ordered that he be put on the front lines where he, quote, surely would be killed. If David had continued the patience he had once held dear, he could have worked out the situation instead of killing an innocent man. Patience is a gift for the gift given. When we have patience, we can have faith that God will work out everything for his glory. We just have to wait for his time, not ours. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit, a fruit given to us, but one that we also must live. First is love. We enjoy love today because of the sacrifice Jesus made on the cross. We see the love he showed us and how we are supposed to replicate it. We see that he loved us so much. He suffered terrible injuries of all kinds, physical and emotional, just to have the possibility of coming into relationship with us. Joy. We have joy today because we can see that Jesus went through all of this pain just to have the possibility of being with us. Not only that, but he made us in his image, with breath from his very own lungs, to be made as great as we could have been. He shows us joy every day by his death on the cross and the experiences we can have today by seeing his grace on the beautiful things of our life. We have peace because in every war, in all hate, we know that no harm will overtake us. It won't come near our home, and Jesus will save us from all deadly pestilence. Now, today, we can enjoy the fact that when we wait and have patience, all will come to fruition. We can have faith that the God of the universe, the creator of everything, will work it out all for his glory in his kingdom. If we take the time to wait patiently for the gift that he has in store, we can be confident that it will all work out. But we must have faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. I ask you today, are you going to have patience in the gift that God has for you? Or are you going to try to rush through it? Because I don't believe that the gift is going to be as great, or that you will get the gift, if waiting is not a key factor before the gift gets there. I encourage you today, have patience in the Lord. Wait for his gift. It will soon come. Wait for the gift.